What's going on, everybody? My name is Trendkill, and welcome back to Know Your Enemy. If you're new to the Know Your Enemy series, we take a look at a specific god in each episode. We then discuss basic information about that god and that god's abilities, and we also go over several tips that will help you out if you end up playing against that god. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Cupid, the god of love. Now remember, these are beginner's guides, so this is basic information. I can't cover all of the nuances of Cupid in one small little 10-minute video. However, if you think I've missed anything that is very important for a new Cupid player, then make sure you leave that information in the comment section below. And without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into the video for Cupid, the god of love. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is take a look at Cupid's graph. Now, a little disclaimer on this graph, I don't actually choose the numbers that go into the system that produces these graphs. These are provided by Hi-Rez. This is the first graph that I'm going to kind of disagree with. I feel like they skimped Cupid a little bit on damage and control. They may have even gypped him a little bit on utility, but I think his mobility, defense, and healing is pretty fair. It's also a good possibility that this graph is slightly outdated since there were some massive hunter changes a couple patches ago. Regardless, even if this is completely accurate, don't let this small graph fool you. Cupid is actually a very good hunter if played properly. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at his abilities so we can see why his graph is shaped the way it is. So first off, let's talk about his passive Love Struck. This is a utility-ish based passive, which is why I was kind of confused to see his utility so low on the chart before. Essentially, every basic attack that Cupid lands, he gains a stack of Love Struck. For every stack that he has of Love Struck, he gets a 2% damage bonus on his next ability. Also note that Cupid's second ability is a heal, so it does no damage. He instead gets a 2% healing bonus on that ability. Now his passive maxes out at 8 stacks, meaning that you can get a maximum of a 16% damage or healing bonus through his passive. Another thing to note is that his first ability, Heart Bomb, and his ultimate ability will gain a 1-second stun on the end of those abilities if he uses those abilities with max Love Struck stacks. So building up your passive before you use your abilities is very important. Now speaking of the importance of building up stacks, let's talk about his first ability, Heart Bomb. Now Heart Bomb is mechanically one of my favorite abilities. Essentially, this ability has 2 damage phases. In the first phase, you shoot your Heart Bomb at somebody and that Heart Bomb does damage to them and then slows them for 3 seconds. During that 3 seconds, you will hear a heartbeat sound. That heartbeat will beat faster and faster and faster until the heart explodes, dealing more damage, this time in an AoE around that person. Now here's the cool part about Heart Bomb. If you happen to have your passive stacked up before you use Heart Bomb, at the end of the detonation when the AoE happens, it will also stun anybody that is around that person when the AoE explodes. So this is a really cool mechanic, and it adds to Cupid's ability to control a fight. If someone else on your team is heart bombed, you obviously do not want to get stunned, so you are going to run away from that person. So it creates some separation, it creates some confusion because it's another thing that you have to think about. Now his second ability, Share the Love, is also something that is very unique to Cupid. In its most basic form, it's just a heal. However, Cupid actually generates items that pop up on the ground, and anybody who walks over those items picks them up and gains health. Now these hearts can be picked up by any ally. However, if they're picked up by somebody other than yourself, Cupid will regenerate mana for every heart picked up. Now here's the interesting part about that. Share the Love at all ranks costs 50 mana. And at all ranks, you regenerate 30 mana per heart picked up by a teammate. So throughout the game, every time Cupid uses Share the Love, he has a possibility of netting 40 mana, assuming all of his hearts are picked up by his teammates and not by himself. Now we'll get into why later, but that can be absolutely huge for your early game laning phase. Moving on to his third ability, Flutter, this is another Cupid ability that doesn't do any damage. It is, however, your escape move, and that escape move comes with a path that allows your teammates to move faster while they're in that path. And in addition to that, still, it gives Cupid an attack speed steroid of 30% at max rank. So given the situation, this can be used as an escape or as an amazing initiation. And finally, his ultimate, Fields of Love, this can be a very team fight changing ability. To my knowledge, this is the largest area cripple in the game. In addition to that, all enemies in the radius are slowed for 35 seconds, and at the end, it explodes and mesmerizes them all for 2.5 seconds. Now, all of that is not counting you having your passive stacked, which adds a 1-second stun to the end of it as well. So early game, if Cupid hits level 5 before you, my god, watch out. Alright, so in the mechanics section, we're going to be discussing some tips that are going to help you play against a Cupid. So if you're finding Cupids in your games and you're wondering why you're getting beat by them, hopefully these tips will help you even the score. First off, let's talk about the fact that Cupid has the lowest health of any hunter in the game. Now to counterbalance that, he can heal himself and he's got a pretty quick escape. However, let's skip his 1 and 2, let's talk about his 3, Flutter, for a second. Even though his dash is quick, it also gives him an attack speed bonus, so you may see him use that aggressively. If Cupid uses Flutter aggressively to initiate a fight, remember that he's going to be fairly squishy and he has no more escape move. So while this is not true in every instance, every time, if Cupid has used his escape move, you can take advantage of the fact that he has no more mobility. So now let's talk about his actual abilities. His first ability, Heart Bomb, is the backbone of his kit. Now the weakness to Heart Bomb is that it's not like Anher's Impale or say Neith's backflip into shooting a weave with Spirit Arrow to blow up an entire wave. Heart Bomb stops at the first thing it hits. So it takes some finagling to hit all of the minions with that one Heart Bomb. It can be done, but it does take some actual focus rather than just throwing a spear and walking away. So let's say you're laning against a Neith, or an Anher, or a god like Amazenkob, who we haven't covered in this series yet. All 3 of those gods should be able to outpush you. So that is one weakness to Cupid's Heart Bomb. Now on the opposite side of that coin, if Cupid does happen to outclear you, it's very likely he's going to have a fully stacked passive, and it's also very likely he's going to be super aggressive with his Heart Bombs because he's got not only a ton of damage coming your way, but also a stun where he can land another couple auto attacks. Now this is even more amplified if Cupid happens to hit level 5 before you do and gets his ultimate, Fields of Love. Early on, Fields of Love is a massive cripple, does a decent amount of damage, slows you, making it easier for Cupid to land a Heart Bomb, stuns you at the end of it, assuming he's got a fully stacked passive, and then the Heart Bomb explodes for even more damage. Now to get out of Fields of Love, you're going to need at least rank 2 of Sprint or Purification Beads, and then it's still not guaranteed you're not going to at least get hit with the damage. It's very unlikely that you're going to have rank 1 in Beads or rank 2 in Sprint that early in the game, so odds are if Cupid can beat you to level 5 and is in an aggressive position, he's probably going to ult you into a Heart Bomb, which is more than likely going to kill you. So be very careful early on against an aggressive Cupid who is slightly ahead of you. Another interesting fact about Heart Bomb is that it has a 3-second duration before it explodes. However, that explosion will come early if whatever it is attached to dies. Meaning that if you are running through a wave of minions and there's a minion that is almost dead and Cupid Heart Bombs that minion will then explode instantly, damaging you and stunning you if he happened to have his passive stack. Now, I'm not saying that every Cupid player you see is going to be actively using that to their advantage, but it is something that you should watch out for. And last but not least, when we're talking about Heart Bomb, do remember that the second damage phase of Heart Bomb shares the stun if Cupid happened to have his passive fully stacked. So if you happen to be the recipient of a Heart Bomb from a fully stacked Cupid, do remember that you should get away from your minions and your laning partner so that you do not share that stun and that damage. Now let's talk about Cupid's heal, his second ability, Spread the Love. This ability is vastly overlooked when you're playing against a Cupid for the first time. You may initially think, it's just a heal, and really it doesn't even heal that much early game. However, do understand that it does add a ton of sustain for that lane. First off, it allows the Guardian in that lane to be far more aggressive because they're going to have a constant flow of HP coming back in. Secondly, it also allows Cupid to be more aggressive because he's going to have a constant flow of mana coming back in. So to a beginning player, this is a very underrated ability. If Cupid's laning with an aggressive tank like Sobek or Emir or Bacchus, that lane can be very scary due to the aggressive tank plus Cupid slows, stuns, heals, mesmerizes, and everything else he's got. Another cool tip about Spread the Love, if you are playing Cupid, this tip is for you. You can line Spread the Love up with the wall perfectly to where 2 of the hearts stack on top of each other. This makes getting your heal much faster than you would if you had to walk around in that triangle shape the hearts usually come out in. So it's an interesting tip. If you have to be low on life running from somebody, you can line your hearts up against a wall to get a double heal, and maybe that will save you. And last but not least, back to Fields of Love. We've already discussed most of what Fields of Love has to offer. However, do remember that if Cupid has his passive stacked, Fields of Love will stun instead of mesmerize. Also, it's very important to have beads and or sprint. Another option would be to have something like Aegis Pendant, which would protect you from the damages, but not from the mesmerizes and the stuns. And also do remember that Fields of Love is a massive and a very quick cripple. So if you are playing a god that relies on dashes and or jumps for survivability, like Cupid himself, be very careful with how you position yourself against a Cupid. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully this video has helped you learn a little bit more about Cupid. Hopefully next time you see him in lane, you'll be a little more prepared to play against him. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for me. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me. Hopefully you come back next week when we're gonna be discussing Agni, the Hindu god of fire.